In 2019 and 2020, right around 38% of our folks were assessing as high risk. In the last year, we've seen our high risk population go from 37-38% down to 29-30%. So we've seen that population drop off, which means that our officers can focus more on the people that we do have.
COVID-19, the legalization of marijuana, Measure 110, criminal justice reform, and many other factors have significantly impacted our local justice system over the last several years in many complex ways. Here is the summary of trends related to parole and probation, supervision, and community justice-involved individuals in Jackson County.
We are going to look at some of the current trends in our community with some local law enforcement statistics. With community justice, we wanted to focus on our adult supervised population. We also include juvenile, but we're not going to focus on those numbers today. We wanted to look at a number of snapshots which indicate the number of people we're carrying on our probation and post-prison supervision case loads at any one time. And if you go back to 2018, you can see what for us was a pretty sharp rise, going from about 1,900 cases on any one day to a quick sharp rise in a year and a half to 2,300, 2,344 in terms of the number of people we're supervising. We were just drowning in cases at that time, and our ability to adequately assess and process and supervise those folks was really limited. Since then, we had the pandemic, and as such, we stopped getting so many front-end referrals from courts. And with that, we saw our supervised population go down from a high of 2,300 to 1,884 beginning of 21. Since then, we've pretty much stabilized right around 1,900 cases. And I think that's an important picture to look at. Even though Measure 110 has significantly limited the number of drug cases we have coming in, the fact that when you showed your drug case chart for Jackson County, it's still 200 cases in 2021, which I'm guessing, and I have nothing to base this on other than history, led the state in the number of drug cases that we saw. So we still have folks who are meeting that substantial quantity threshold that gets them system involved. And I know each of these graphs look similar, but what it represents is the way that our population in Jackson County breaks down. So if you look at all of those, 1,900 cases, or at one point 2,300 cases, we'd break them down by percentage of high risk, medium risk, and low risk. Well, in 2019 and 2020, right around 38% of our folks were assessing as high risk. We still had 28% at medium, and our medium population has pretty much remained stable. What has changed is that in the last year, we've seen our high risk population as a percentage of who we serve go from 37-38% down to 29-30%. So that's a significant drop in the people we supervise who are a high risk to recidivate. The likely and simplest explanation is that we don't have as many of those drug cases where people who were on supervision for drug cases recidivated frequently. So we've seen that population drop off, which on a business level for what we do means that our officers can focus more on the people that we do have. 39% high risk is not very sustainable in terms of the number of contacts that are required for those folks, the number of interventions that are required. So now we're at a more manageable population. But that manageable population, if you go to the far right, is still considerably more high risk than the rest of the state. That far right pie chart shows that the state operates right around 18% high risk. And our county, even though we've dropped a little bit, is still 29% high risk. So those are significantly more intensive cases that require more work on our part than do our state counterparts. But if you go to the last slide, just so we have some positive information to report, Jackson County is the green line and the state is the blue line. And these are simply the number of cases that we close each year that are considered a positive case closure. You go back to 2017, only 56% of our cases that we closed were closed as positive. You saw that as it was about 6% less than the state average. The state was closing 62% of their folks as positive. Gradually, we've been able to, initially we really changed our philosophy and asked a different tact from our officers. We started focusing on client support and success, and we saw that raise significantly, and we've been able to maintain a success rate higher than our state partners over the last 5 years. And in the last 2 years, we've been really close to 80% of the cases that we close coming through as positive. And the main reason, again, and the credit goes to our officers, adapting strategies of engagement and support where necessary. The sheriff kind of said we were that, you didn't say strong safety, but I think you meant strong safety from a football perspective. Or for Dave Carter, we're that sweeper back there trying to keep people out of the goal. That is our role. That's what we're trying to do. And when we can be successful and fulfill our role, it means less work, hopefully, for Josh, less work for the prisons, and more successful outcomes for our law enforcement and for Beth's team when they give people probations or when we're asked to provide supervision. So we're proud of that last number. It's something we're going to try and continue on. And we've done that throughout the pandemic and throughout the wildfire that ripped through our community and took housing away from so many of the people that we are asked to supervise. So they were really one of the populations that were hit in terms of not being able to find housing.